Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel. Here's a story about one of the most unbelievable survival tales in history, when a plane crashed into the freezing Andes Mountains, and what happened next shocked the world. This is the true story of Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571, also known as the Miracle of the Andes. Stay with me as we uncover this chilling and inspiring tale of human endurance. 12th October, 1972. A small chartered aircraft took off from Uruguay, South America. The aircraft was going to Santiago, the capital of Chile. Carrying some rugby players, tall and broad, there were 45 passengers in total. Some of the players' family and friends had tagged along. This flight was not going to be long. Usually it takes only 3 hours to go from Uruguay to Santiago. But on the way you come across the huge Andes Mountains. The Andes mountain range in South America is the world's longest mountain range. Other than the Himalayan mountains, the highest mountains are found here. These beautiful mountains become devastating for the passengers in our story. That day, on the 12th of October, there was a storm in the mountains, because of which the plane couldn't keep flying. The pilots then decided to stop midway and try to fly again the next day. The plane landed in Mendoza, Argentina for the night. The next day, on October 13th, the plane took off again at 2:18 p.m. The pilot ensured that the weather had cleared up, so it was a smooth sailing flight for the next hour. At 3:21 p.m., the pilots start descending the plane. The plane was quite close to Santiago, but was still in the mountains, since there are high mountains right next to the city. While descending suddenly, there was terrible turbulence. The plane started shaking horizontally. Around this time, clouds gathered around the plane. Nothing was visible except the clouds. Suddenly, the alarms in the plane went off, and the warning lights began to flash. No one could understand why the rugby players in the passenger seats weren't scared. They didn't take this turbulence seriously. Amid jokes, a passenger looked out of the window and saw the clouds clearing up. But then he noticed that they were perilously close to a mountain. As soon as the aircraft moved out of the clouds, the pilots realized that they were moving towards a huge rock. Immediately, in a panic, they tried to lift the plane up. The aircraft's ground collision alarm was ringing loudly. Pilots put in maximum power into gaining altitude to fly the mountain safely. But unfortunately, it was too late. The rear of the aircraft collided with the mountain while going up. The entire rear position of the plane separated the two rows of the seat, literally flew out of the plane. 3 passengers flew away with it and disappeared. The plane kept flying upward for a few more seconds, but then suddenly it started to fall down. After a few seconds, another collision happened. The left wing of the plane broke. Some more passengers flew out of the plane and fell down. Now only the front portion of the plane remained, and it fell into a glacier. It slid down the glacier at a speed of 350 kilometers per hour, and finally, it crashed after dropping 700 meters. Everything in the plane was destroyed. The passenger seats were torn apart from the base of the plane. The cockpit of the plane was completely crushed, and the pilots were killed immediately. This aircraft lay broken on an unknown mountain in the Andes, at a height of 3,570 meters. Surprisingly, out of the 45 people on board, 33 were still alive. They had somehow survived this crash. The problem was that many of them were injured, and no one knew where they were stuck. It was later found that this plane was 80 kilometers off from its planned route. And this painful story of survival had just began. Friends, neither those people could have imagined at that time, nor you can imagine now what happened to these survivors next. That is the heart-wrenching story of Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571. Let's know about it in today's video. Plane crashed in Andes Mountains. 45 persons were aboard. Given up for dead survival fascinates people. All of the passengers were given up for dead. It became known as the Miracle of the Andes. Right after this crash, there were 2 survivors who weren't seriously injured. First, 19-year-old Roberto Canessa and the 20-year-old Gustavo Zerbino, since both of them were medical students. They immediately started checking who was alive and how to help the injured. They saw that many passengers had suffered severe injuries. One of them was 23 years old, Fernando Parado, who was in a coma to a skull fracture. These two medical students tried their best to help the survivors. On the other hand, within an hour of the plane's disappearance, the Children Air Search and Rescue Service received a notification. 4 aircraft were developed to search for the survivors. They tried to find the crash site from dusk till night, but unfortunately, they didn't find anything. The rescue service officer concluded after hearing the radio transmissions that the aircraft must have crashed in a remote and inaccessible area. The problem was that the aircraft was white in color, and it had crashed in a plain where there was white snow and ice all around. It was very difficult to locate it in the snowy mountains on the night of the 13th of October. The remaining passengers were very hopeful. They hoped that if they would somehow spend a night there and find a way to escape the cold, then someone would find them the next day. 5 injured passengers couldn't survive that snowy night. The number of survivors fell from 33 to 28. The survivors used the remaining body of the plane as a shelter. They used luggage, seats, and snow to close the rear of the plane so that they could stay warm inside. The next day, on the 14th, October 11, different aircraft from Argentina, Chile, and Uruguay were put into search operation. The search area they chose was correct. The location of the crash site was in that search area. But still, they were not able to find the crash site. Survivors tried to use lipstick to write SOS on the plane roof. They started writing SOS, but soon realized that they didn't have enough lipstick to write all the letters. Then, they tried to use suitcase to make a big cross in the snow so that search aircraft flying above could see them. But soon, they realized that this was not working. That day, they saw not 1, not 2, but 3 aircraft flying over them. They screamed, waved their hands, and tried their best to make the aircraft notice them, but they were unsuccessful. Another day passed in this attempt. The next day, 15th October, the survivors realized that they needed water to stay alive. A passenger named Fito Strauch found a way to get water. He used a metal sheet as a solar collector so that the sun rays could be concentrated to melt the snow, and he collected water droplets in empty wine bottles. Apart from this, many passengers used the seat cushions like snowshoes, and the wool in the seat covers was used to protect them from the cold. The next day, on the 16th of October, 3 days after the crash, Fernando Parado woke up from his coma. He saw that his mother passed away in the crash and his 19-year-old sister was severely injured. Parado tried his best to keep his sister alive. He brought food and water for him. But as the days went by, 8 days after the crash, his sister succumbed to her injuries. Such accidents reminds us how uncertain life is and how unpredictable it is. We don't know how long we will live. That's why it is said live every moment. Live every day, every moment in your life. Because who knows, tomorrow may not come. But there's also the question of how, in our daily lives, considering other tensions like work, how can one find time for things one likes? Thank you for watching. If you found this story inspiring, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible tales of survival. Until next time, stay safe and stay strong.